This podcast is a member of WildGamesProductions.com and D20Radio.com.
This is James M. Wood here, and D&D experts like myself love listening to the Save or Die podcast because I learn something new every time I tune in.
You burst through the door. You find a small room filled with gold and jewels and a red dragon. He starts to breathe. Save or die! I'm rolling toys like a 60 waving bottom. AC doesn't matter. Critical damage from my warhammer. I throw the pitch and roll against every single from them. God's bottom over my mighty blow. I lay 'em low, yes I lay 'em low.
Welcome to the Save or Die podcast, a podcast about classic Dungeons and Dragons.
Bring on your goblin holes and band of oaks. Hulking zombies and bows. And oh no, no troll, don't slow me down, oh no. Don't dig a vicious.
Howdy, everybody. Welcome to Save or Die. Back to a real episode this time. Real. Episode 12, where we're talking about gods.
Gods, and more gods.
More gods than you can shake a penultimate truth at or something.
Little G gods.
Yeah, little G gods. Little G gods. We're not going there. Or not much, anyway. Anyway, the official representative for the Church of Subgenius, DM Mike here. And with us is the official Cincinnati representative of Campus Crusade for Cthulhu, GM Wampler.
You bastard.
Sorry, Wampler.
What a creep! What a creep!
Don't make me wake an elder god on your ass.
Again? No, anyway. And the lady who spends so much time playing clerics, I wouldn't be surprised if she actually was at this point, DM Liz.
Hello.
Where's that cure light wounds here?
Something like that.
Something like. So, are we ready to tackle a nice, safe topic on Save or Die? Like,
oh, sure.
Peace and worship and stuff? Okay, cool. But first, we have a basic impressions.
Hi there, Mike, Liz, and Jim. This is DMT Man from Pennsylvania. And I was calling in reference to your most recent show where you had, you were talking about the Red Box, and you had DM Mikey, or Mikey, the fellow who did some singing also, and the comedian on as a guest host. And one thing that was touched on, he was kind of hard on the Mentzer Red Box. And one of the things that he was very hard on was those early levels, saying that, at that point, you don't have a lot of survivability, you don't have a lot of spells, thief skills aren't too good, clerics don't have too much at first level, and that's why I think he was mostly hard on that in his review and giving it a little bit of low marks. And of course, that's his opinion, and that's fine. But one thing that I thought about was, the lethality of those early levels really is a good topic and really something to tackle in terms of the basic D&D. A lot of people think it's really, really too lethal at that level. Now, I should say as a caveat here, I'm not very lethal as a DM. I hate to kill characters, and I kind of follow the TV show format, where the main characters never die. And that may be a fault of my DMing. That this may be a fault or something I need to rethink or will rethink in the future. Maybe I don't give enough tension to the evening, where the characters actually could die, because usually I kind of wimp out a bit and they don't. So, let's look at that lethality just a little bit here. Some people might say that it's a feature. It's not a bug, it's a feature of classic D&D, and the same would be true for first and second edition. There's a few ways to go about it. You might make multiple characters and see who survives. For what I understand, Dungeon Crawl Classics does this, that you roll up a bunch of characters and you see who makes it. And perhaps the most important thing as a feature is it really does promote caution. If you don't have a lot of hit points, you're going to be very, very careful, and you're going to learn how to approach situations maybe, without rushing in and hacking and slashing right away. So in that way, it may be a feature. And another thing too then, because at those early levels you don't have much, maybe you appreciate when you do start to get the spells and your skills start to bump up. Sort of like if you grow up poor and you get something, you maybe appreciate that a little bit more than if you had to kind of have everything given to you versus if you have to earn it. So, in that way, it might be a feature. Now, for those folks who think it's a bug, I would say, too, there are some workarounds. You can still play classic D&D and work around that lethality at the early levels. Some simple fixes are that you get maximum hit point to start. I believe Old School Chris, who's on the boards, he gives folks their constitution score when they start. No, they don't get that later, but that's their starting hit points is their con score, and it goes up from there. Later editions have their own formula. I think one of them, it's like 10 plus your con bonus or something. But of course, we're not too worried about that on this program. Now, my workaround for that is that I start my games at 3rd level. That way they have some hit points, they have some spells, clerics have some things, thieves maybe have at least a little bit percentile, although that doesn't really pick up too much, at least not for a while. So that's my workaround 3rd level. I could be wrong. I may be missing something by not having my players go through those early, very lethal levels. I'm just saying that right out there. I could be wrong on this. And one thing, too, was mentioned is there is the other end of the spectrum. Well, what about high levels? And you mentioned this on the Magic User show, which was a few shows ago. I don't remember the number. And I kind of do the same thing. I think Mike mentioned that he likes to do this. I tend to start my campaigns over at about levels 12 to 14. At that level, your spellcasters, your elves, your mystics or monks, they're just starting to get really powerful. We had a mystic in our last campaign, a monk, and he could take out almost anything in a couple of rounds. So, and again, I don't know if that's the best approach either. It's kind of what I've been doing, but I know some folks prefer to just keep on going with the same character, maybe as long as they can, or they feel like, well, if you're ending early, at level 12 or level 14, maybe they're not really getting to experience those high level adventures. And maybe for myself, I needed to just throw more at them in those high level adventures. So those are some thoughts on lethality and the different levels. So I'd really be real grateful to hear what Mike and Liz and Jim think. And take care, folks.
Thanks, Teeman. Well, who wants to take this first?
Well, I have one thing I have to get out of my system up front.
Yes?
Teeman, grow a pair. And man up, Buttercup.
Hey. I kind of know where he's coming from, as where it can be hard to kill characters, especially right out the gate. They first, your players have first started playing. They're not quite sure what to expect, and especially if you wind up killing them their very first game session, it can be kind of traumatic for them, especially if they're kind of young, too. So I've been there. I've felt, I don't really want to,
To play the skeleton.
Yeah.
Well, okay. I'm partially a victim of the time and era I learned to play in, because my very first DM, Lonnie Barnett, in the Baptist Student Union at the University of Kentucky, he's like, okay, first thing we do is create characters. Roll up 2. And I'm like, why am I rolling up 2? And he's like, you'll find out.
Yeah, and as far as talking about power levels and everything, yeah, I will freely admit that when we were in Mississippi, we never really played it like this, but the original D&D, the idea was if you were having power level problems, hire hirelings to back you up. That was to compensate for low power levels or that sort of thing,
And just run a first level adventure.
Well, I've always preferred playing low level characters. And it's kind of like what he talks about, being appreciative of powers and goodies at higher level when you start out with nothing. I've always found it far more interesting to try to solve the problems and do the thing when you don't have so much to work with.
Yep, you're exactly right. I mean, obviously, I want to sit down and play a magic user who already has lightning bolt and fireball. But when we were playing that basic game that Angry Monk ran, what happened when that evil wizard we were up against chucked the invisibility potion? I mean, I'm sitting there with a cleric or whatever with no spells that were going to do anything, so I just grabbed a handful of dirt and threw it where I last saw him. That kind of creativity will serve you well even later at the higher levels.
Yeah, if you'll forgive me a little cross cross promoting here. Roll for Initiative's Mini Adventure 5. They talked a bit about the subject was 0 hit points meaning death. And Sal made a great point over there that when death is that immediate, you get creative.
True.
It's whereas, if you think you can, well, I got to neg 5 or neg 10, or Vince even mentioned a neg 20 at one point. Wow. I don't even know what to think of that, but
well, and that this is about playstyle preference. I don't have a dog in that hunt. If you want to run your campaign and your group has fun playing a certain way, I'm all for it. I'm just expressing my own personal taste and playstyle preferences.
Yeah, and I will say that as a DM, I have occasionally had trouble killing a character. Not because I'm necessarily reluctant to kill a character, but it's like I have this plan to make that character's life a living hell.
Nice.
And if they die, I can't do it. So it really kind of puts me in a conundrum here, because it's like, but I have all these plans to totally mess up her psyche. You know who I'm talking about, Liz.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
I don't want her to die. On the other hand, in classic D&D, death isn't the end. Even low to mid-level characters can eventually scrape up the cash for a resurrection.
Right, and dragging the body back to get raised is a whole adventure. Why would you deprive yourself of that?
Yeah.
But there's one other... Teeman, I loved your basic impression, so don't get me wrong. Your points were eruditely expressed. I wanted to defend Mikey Mason a little bit, too, since that came up in the basic impressions, only because Teeman mentioned it, and the boards got all fired up about it from the Red Box episode. I'm intrigued that people heard Mikey come completely down on some of their favorite versions of basic D&D when he spent the vast majority of the episode singing its high praises and talking about all the nostalgia he had wrapped up in himself, beginning with Red Box D&D.
Well, I think you could hear, I think we were all just kind of going, huh?
Yeah, so they're
he wound up giving it such a low score. I was like, what? But you said.
I think what happened there at the end is, Mikey's a professional stand-up comedian. And so I think he just took an arbitrary position trying to be funny. And I actually did think it was funny. But Mikey and I are friends, which is both why I want to defend him. And I have that understanding, which listeners might not have.
Well, he wrote a song about the game. He can't think that poorly of it. And I did kind of wonder if he was doing that more just for the notoriety than anything else. But
I was going to say, from a purely marketing standpoint, the saying goes, there's no such thing as bad publicity. A lot of people talked about Mikey Mason, and I would be very interested to see, how much extra traffic did he wind up getting to his website and stuff after that. It's not going to hurt him.
And by the way, Mikey, if you're listening, and I know you are, I give you a shout out to Alex Koner over at Gamehole Con. So I put in a shot for you.
So thanks, Teeman.
Yeah, thanks, Teeman. I kind of know where he's coming from, though. But again, the higher he was saying, he started people off around 3rd level, which I find interesting because when I was playing 1st level 5e, that's exactly the type of character I felt I was running. It was a 3rd level character. But if you're running adventure, you're 3rd level, you can do more, but you're also probably going to be facing bigger monsters. So it's really a psychological thing. Everything's going to scale to a minimum. Again, like you said, if it works for you, then you're doing it right for your game and your people.
And thanks for name checking DCC, because DCC makes having 2 hit points and trying to survive a dungeon fun.
Well, when you have the funnel, you gotta have fun.
Hey, fun isn't
right there in the null. All right. Well, just before we head to our commercial break, as it were, before we get into talking about deities and that sort of thing in Classic, I just wanted to mention a couple of things. I had recently found a couple of new podcasts I want to give shout-outs to. One's called Going In Blind, which is a DM recording an actual play podcast with a group of players playing 5e, and they're all blind. So
Ooh.
it's kind of just, as a blind guy myself, obviously I found that interesting how they were getting around handling, dice and that sort of thing. And I'll put a link to it in the show notes. So that was pretty cool. The other is called Behind the Claw, which is a Classic Traveler podcast, which Robert Fisher was kind enough to send me in when I was linked to it when I was going on and on and on about Classic Traveler on the Save for Half episode. Both will be in the show notes. Good stuff.
And we already had a winner on first critical email of Save for Half, right?
Indeed. It looks like it's going to be Tony Emmel. And I'm reluctantly saying that because I got confused and thought it was just the first email I got. So I sent a copy to Robert Fisher, but it was actually the critical one. So I'll be sending you a copy of Clockwork Crimes very shortly.
Well, hey,
Probably
2 winners. What's wrong with that? Nothing.
Nothing at all. Except, of course, if he needs that, it means he didn't support my Kickstarter. Oh, well.
Now, don't cry, Mike. Don't cry.
I won't.
It'll be okay.
Wow.
I'll be back after these messages.
Yeah.
Are you enjoying the show you're listening to right now? Want to help support the show? Why not head over to the Patreon site, patreon.com/WGP. That's patreon.com/WGP. And help support the network for as little as $1.50 a month. That's right, $1.50 a month goes a long way. Thank you.
Thopus the Gnome here. The Save or Die podcast is brought to you in part by a more than generous grant from me.
Don't you mean a generous grant by Lesser Known Games?
Same thing. I pretty much run the joint. And this one too now, come to think of it. Here. Go finish the commercial for me, knave.
You got it. Lesser Known Games and Miniatures. Available at rpgnow.com, lesserknown.com, or at a friendly local game store near you.
What are you doing? It's game time.
I think I play too much. People say it's weird. We should cut back.
That's insane.
Game, Mrs. Hudson, is on.
Okay! Game on! Game on! Game on!
Invite said, game on! Hop on that, game on! Say it proud, game on! Screw the crowd, game on! No one else to please.
Game on! Gaming with deities. Well, not with deities, but dealing with deities from a player's perspective. And I suppose this doesn't have to be a matter of playing clerics or paladins or such like, but, I mean, you can have a fighter or a thief that worships a god or something. As we've mentioned on the show before, when the Mentzer series, Classic D&D, came out, and then later Rules Cyclopedia, hi Vince, they got away from the idea of deities and went more to that, was it Disciplines of Truth or something like that? How have you guys, whenever you've played characters that had gods, how much did you ever get into them or not? Or were you like a cleric that just kind of, I worship the god of...
I always liked picking out a god for my cleric to worship, and generally I would try to make that choice make sense for my character's personality, etc. Or I would choose the god and then I would model the character's personality around that, thinking, well, someone who would worship X would probably be someone who would act this way. So it was a choice that was thought out one way or the other.
Jim? I
know because this podcast is about Classic D&D, we're of course going to talk about the supplement Gods, Demigods, and Heroes. Or is it going to be okay with you if we also speak to Deities and Demigods? As
sure.
It was published in 1980 when before Moldvay Cook, so even Holmes told you, from here you go to AD&D.
I was going to say, Holmes said all over the place, go to AD&D, go to AD&D, so...
One could debate how rational that was with the rule systems, but
nevertheless, that's what he told you to do.
Well, the reason I asked is because in the preface to Deities and Demigods, Gary lays out the whole reason why this is the fourth hardback AD&D book, and they were trying to solve two problems. One was improper play by Gary's metrics of Dungeons & Dragons by just kind of glossing over and ignoring the source of divine power that the clerics all got. And then, of course, the second one was the wild and woolly gaming of the 70s where, we went to Valhalla and slayed Odin, Yeah.
I think Tim Kask ranted about that in the foreword to Gods, Demigods, and Heroes.
Right. Exactly so. And that was my personal experience because when I started, it was OD&D graduating to AD&D for the DMs that were running for me in my first group, that Lonnie guy I was just talking about. When we started playing, we just sort of glossed over it. And it wasn't really important to gameplay where the cleric spells were coming from or who the paladins worshipped or anything like that. The only thing we were worried about is if we ran into demons or devils, which technically are also deity level demigods. And the second Deities and Demigods came out. By that time, my brother had started the campaign I played in off and on for almost 20 years. And it suddenly became very important to us where that stuff was coming from.
Yeah. I noticed that when you look at Holmes, for example, both the rule book and Maze of Peril, there are clerics, but they don't really get into deities except for the dark Cthulhuid-esque deities that obviously the orcs or creatures in the dungeons are worshipping and are abominations and must be destroyed. Fill in the blank. But yeah, there's no real, it's, you end up with the stereotypical pseudo-Catholicism, non-specific Christian denomination of clerics in original D&D. And I only say that because your holy symbol, it's a cross. You don't buy a holy symbol.
On all the Grenadier minis, it was.
Yeah. I mean, in the early day, they didn't worry about that. But then, when Gods, Demigods, and of course in Dragon Magazine, they were originally running some of those pantheons that eventually showed up in Gods, Demigods, and Heroes. And I remember, it may have been Tim Kask again, but somebody was grousing about how, getting letters from D&D fans in the 70s going, yeah, when are you going to publish another pantheon? My character needs some more XPs. Really?
In the Finnish portion of Gods, Demigods, and Heroes, he's talking about, and for those out there in D&D land that like ordering gods around, this is your piece of cake. It's like, oh, ow.
Yeah.
I gotta ask Jim Ward one day what's up with the Finnish and Celtic deities because they're in both books, and compared to, if you read Marvel Comics, the Norse gods. If you went to school at all, the Greek gods. Very popular, pantheons. But the Finnish deities and the Celtic deities are in both books.
Yeah. I can kind of see Celtic, but yeah, Finnish is really kind of out there. And there's a certain degree of overlap, but... I
wonder if it's because there were so many interesting magical items connected with those stories.
Could be.
Well, I know Jim is a big mythology buff, but his main area of interest is Egyptian mythology. He loves the Egyptian pantheon. Mm-hmm. So I understand that.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the Egyptian pantheon goddesses in proper outfits.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sure.
Maybe it was Rob Kuntz. Maybe he was the Finn.
Maybe. As a running clerics, so you never really worried about it, Jim?
In the early days, no. Me personally, I didn't pick... Clerics are my second favorite class to play today, but I never ran anything besides magic users and the odd elf fighter mage back in the day. I mean, once my brother fired up his campaign and the gods were taking an active role, there were interactions, but my magic user was always carefully agnostic.
I used to play the occasional cleric, but yeah, I mean, we would go through G, D, and H, or deities and demigods, but it was more just, okay, did you choose a god? Yes. Okay. And other than maybe occasionally shouting their name as charging into battle, it really never, most of the groups I was in never really played played it up that much. Certainly not in high school. It was a bit better when I was gaming with the older guys. So then that brings interesting points. So does Mentzer's getting rid of it really inhibit D&D then? I mean, it bugs me. I'll freely admit it. I don't like it. But, just thinking about it now objectively, would it have made a lot of difference to actual play styles in the late 70s?
Well, I think if you were used to using gods already, if you went to Mentzer, it would have been pretty easy to just stick them back in.
Yeah.
It's a different game. I mean, Gary's whole point in the preface to Deities and Demigods is this is an integral component of D&D, and it's not Gary Gygax's D&D without this. Now, today, we have all the versions to look at, so if you for whatever reason, decided, I want my campaign to be Pantheon less, I had a hard time making that word, and you go to Mentzer and have at it.
Yeah. Okay, well, unless there's anything else we want to talk about from the player's angle, shall we go into DM Fiat?
Sure.
Thought we were going to have a bigger discussion there, but it was like, it's gone.
I thought you were going to ask us our best and worst deity stories as a player.
That's kind of what I thought I was asking.
I didn't get that.
I have an interaction with deity story as a player.
Okay. Well, cut that prior crap out then. Okay, Jim.
Snip.
Tell me your best and worst story for interacting as a player dealing with deities.
I'll try and condense so this doesn't turn into a long-winded character story, but best and worst is both the same. My magic user, my brother's universe, had gotten up medium level, but thanks to an unlucky draw from the deck of many things, earned himself the major enmity. Is that the way you say it? Enmity?
Enmity, yeah.
Of a major devil. And my brother, at a very young age, because I'm not sure he'd even graduated high school at this point, turned that on me and made me paranoid. And I got this berserk paranoid idea that I entirely created myself, that Asmodeus was after Midas the Mad. And got so paranoid about it that went to the wizard I was apprenticed to, who was higher level and had the spell, and had used a clone spell to create a copy of myself, take half my magic items, which included the staff elemental command, and leave them with the clone and lock him up in stasis in case Asmodeus popped up and grabbed my character. This is
in case of death, break glass.
Player Ingenuity 101. What were we just talking about? Kill my character? I don't care. I've got a backup copy, right? And then got a job managing the Vanderbilt Domino's Pizza in Nashville, and left my brother's campaign for over a year. And while I was gone, that clone woke up, and according to the AD&D rules, knew my original character existed, went insane, went to the opposite alignment, which was lawful evil, and became a stooge for Asmodeus, and started hounding down our players with the staff elemental command. And they didn't recognize him because it had one of those artifact things where it makes your arms all bone, no skin, and they called him Lefty.
So he was kind of like Asmodeus' Darth Vader.
He ended up marrying Glacia and having a half-devil kid that was the anti-paladin I played for my brother just to help him out by playing an NPC. But by the time I got back to the campaign with my main character, they're all trying to hunt down this insane evil wizard named Lefty, and nobody even knows who it is. And we got a year or two of the campaign out of just trying to track that guy down and nail him, because I had him polymorphed into turtle in my hands, and something happened and I lost him. It was crazy.
Well, I will not condone evil characters doing anything. Yeah, evil of any type or color. But gotta admit, Glacia was hot. If you'll forgive the pun.
Ha 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 ha.
Well, Liz, do you have a story?
Oh gosh. Well, I sort of do, but I don't know if I want to tell it.
Tell it, Liz.
Okay.
If you can't tell it in front of thousands of listeners of Save or Die, who can you tell it to?
Oh, yeah, that.
No one.
Thanks.
Okay. Well, first off, I'm going to have to start off the story by admitting that I did have a drow character at one point.
You naughty girl.
Yes. And she was, kind of pseudo Drizzt, did not like living down in, I can never pronounce the name of that drow city, the one with 15 syllables.
They send you?
Yeah, anyway.
Say it louder, Mike. I couldn't hear you.
That's good.
Anyway. So she leaves, goes to the service, and just to be totally pissy, decides that, she's going to be a cavalier and worship the goddess Meliki, the goddess of the forest.
Speaking of Finns.
Speaking of the Finnish gods.
Wow, this may be the first time I've ever heard the Finnish gods used.
Yeah.
Oh, in my campaign world, Meliki is like the major goddess of good in the world.
Sweet.
So, yeah.
Anyway, so she is a follower of Meliki just to thumb her nose at all the rest of her race. And she's going around being a cavalier, getting the fancy...
Being a paladin now.
No. She insists she is not a paladin.
Yeah, you hold on to that.
But that's the story part, because Meliki has taken an interest in her and is determined to make her into a paladin. And her opinion of the whole matter is, you do remember what I am, right? It's like, lawful, I am not.
2 quick clarifications here. One, the Drizzt comparison isn't that good because Talia doesn't cry in her beer all the time.
Yeah,
about
she doesn't
her
go
life.
around moping about, I'm a drow and I'm on the surface and I'm all alone. She's like, oh, grow up.
Life sucks. Move on.
Life sucks. It is what it is. Let's move on.
Am I picking up correctly on this took place in Mike's universe?
Yes.
So the part of the story I'm really interested in is, did Mike penalize your character experience levels when you switched alignments?
I actually started out low level, so there wasn't much to penalize.
Which was the other part of the clarification I was going to make. Liz had originally, her character had gotten whacked or something in the part, and she was coming up with a new character, and I was figuring out a way to introduce her. And she had rolled up an elf cavalier, because this was AD&D at the time. And I was trying to think, how can I introduce... And I used I came up with a system for my own system for generating high-level characters at the spur of the moment, though I think she was only like 4th, not that high at all. But we were rolling magic items, and she ended up getting a hat of appearance. And we were thinking like, well, why would she have a hat of appearance? And then I clicked, Liz, make her a drow. That's why she would have a hat of appearance.
Not because you're my girlfriend.
Wife.
Oh, okay.
But
otherwise it's like, so I have this hat that makes me look like whoever I want.
Why would she have that? Why would an elf cavalier have that? That makes no sense. What could she possibly be trying to And then later we doing some character development, everything, developed the entire backstory, and then Meliki was following her around trying to give her lots of trouble. So,
did you go for it?
Go for what?
Did the character become a paladin, a lawful paladin?
The last time I played her, and we kind of stopped in the middle of the story.
She's wielding an old elven blade that was sentient and was riding a unicorn. What do you think?
She's still in denial, though. It's like, I am a cavalier. I am not a paladin because it is inherently impossible for me to be one. So yeah, if I pick her up again for any reason, she'll probably continue to be in denial for quite some time until she's forced to come to terms with the fact that, yeah, she's a paladin.
See, at the start, you seem reluctant to tell the story as though it were embarrassing, and as you're telling it, I'm like, I don't get it. There's nothing embarrassing about that. That sounds like a cool character. Until you got to the unicorn.
See, that is embarrassing. But
now I get it.
See, but again, Liz didn't ask for that.
She
didn't want that.
For that.
I inflicted that on her.
I did not ask for a unicorn.
She did not. I think, in fact, your reaction when the unicorn came up was like, "Oh, for God's sake!"
A unicorn mount down where I come from, we call that flirting.
Actually, where she comes from, they probably call it dinner. But you know.
My only. Most of my stories for using deities, as you can imagine, is as a DM. The only real character ones I'll mention is, again, playing it with the Delta Area Wargamers. If you've read any Fritz Lieber's Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser, that's how he played his gods. Even the quote-unquote good ones were likely to screw you and leave you, in major trouble. So the whole idea, even clerics, you called on the gods as little as possible.
Just lay low and hope they don't notice you.
Right. Because especially when you try to any high-level spells, then it's like, well, why should I do this for you? Because I've been a good character and I have a high charisma? No. You got to role-play it. Come on. I'm 13. What do you want?
See, that's good adventuring right there. There's a player in my campaign named Nikki who plays a techno mage who's got a patron AI, and she's invoked him like 3 times now, and she knows there's a bill coming due. And the longer I wait to serve the bill, the more worried she gets about it. It's awesome.
Your Cyberbrain's bill is now ready to be viewed. Log in to see what you owe.
Oh, hey, that's good. I'm going to use that.
You have mail. All right. Well, anything else, or shall we move on to DM Fiat and talk about it from the DM's chair?
Let's move on.
Let's Fiat.
The time has come, as I promised. The time when I reveal to you, my loyal followers, the key to creating hysteria, fear, gods.
Fiating. Here we are, fiating our DMness.
Used to drive a Fiat when I was about this age. We were playing D&D.
I could spell Fiat when I was playing. Anyway. DMing as gods. Now, the first thing I have always heard from at least one player in every group that I've had anything to do with is DMs just use gods as a hammer to either beat down the player characters or make them go directions they don't want to and to railroad them. Discuss.
Growing another pear, Buttercup?
How many pairs do you have to have? Or is this a funnel too?
Well, I mean, you either like your DM and trust your DM, or you don't. And assuming that...
sometimes it's not like that, because sometimes you're all getting together to game for the first time, or the first few times, Well,
if you're familiar with fantasy tropes at all, so many times a deity of some kind is the initial force that puts things into motion.
Which is exactly my argument.
It's kind of hard not to do that sometimes when you're trying to go for a specific feel to your campaign, and to give a sense of what's going on is really serious because even the gods are paying attention, You want to use them to, give a sense of what's happening.
Exactly so, and that's the real argument for including deities in a standard D&D campaign. Not because Gary Gygax said so. Why did Gary Gygax say so? Well, Gary Gygax said so because it's all throughout the Appendix N literature that inspired the game. Like you were just talking about, Mike.
Yeah.
To try and get through Lankmar without a deity. Good luck.
Yeah. Elric of Melnibone, or Melnibone, I never figured out how to pronounce that, but, he was constantly getting jerked around by Ariok and The Other Guy by Zayambarge and all that sort of stuff. I mean,
put a bookmark in that for when we get to random encounters and pick your favorite deity. Yeah. Put a bookmark in that one right there.
Which one?
Never mind. We'll get there.
We'll find out. Okay.
That being said, I know people have used them as, very clumsy hammers. I think it is a valid argument that there have been DMs that when things were not going the way that they envisioned in their heads, decided to, very clumsily try to force things by, bringing in a god for no apparent reason. I think anything has the ability to be abused. But that doesn't mean that there is no place for using gods.
Yeah, the same argument is you can use for any type of, they're the same people that say you can't do a mystery adventure, because otherwise you're railroading people. Like, no, not necessarily. But there has to be a certain path, otherwise you can't get to the crime,
Well, right. And a good or even competent DM is only going to use deities to further the gaming experience and the plot. You're talking about, Liz, the bad DMs where if pushed in a corner, they lose their temper, and suddenly Thor shows up and hammers everybody. Literally.
Yeah.
Although talking about the fiction, and I kind of, lump Greek and Norse mythology into that, can an argument be made for sufficiently high-level characters go gunning for a god?
Well, according to Gary Gygax, in the preface and some of the text that you can tell he wrote, even though Jim Ward and Rob Kuntz are credited with Deities and Demigods, he addresses that directly. And I think maybe even Tim did in the preface to Gods, Demigods, and Heroes. If a character reaches a sufficiently high enough level to begin to treat with the deities, that character should ascend to demigodhood and be removed from play as an NPC. That's Gary's solution to that.
Otherwise called retirement.
Right.
Yeah, but of course, players don't want to do that, especially, I know especially when we were in high school, nobody wanted to do that. It's like, no way, man, I want to keep playing. I want to blow up planets.
Well, right, but the instructions Gary gives is that, okay, now that character's been raised to a demigod, he's a messenger and a minion of his deity. So that would be a real boring character to play, just running messages around.
True.
The Outer Planes.
But then, okay, I guess then that takes the other argument. Do gods even need stats? Do they need an armor class, hit points?
I've always taken, I won't say always, because when I first started playing and running the game, it didn't occur to me. But after, some years of doing stuff, I have eventually come to the point where I figure those stats, you are killing a physical avatar of the god. You are not actually killing the god. The real quote-unquote god, does not have stats. And you would need to do something really, really special to fully destroy a god, as opposed to just coming up with your magic sword to Mount Olympus and whacking him until he fell down.
And again, it all falls on the DM. If the DM is competent, you can try that. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, or certainly shouldn't. But I guess that was second edition did that. AD&D when they did Legends and Lore and stuff, they said no, these are just avatars. They're not the actual gods. But then they halved everything. Now they've only got 120 hit points, or they're 12th level, and what?
Well, that idea Liz talked about was more or less introduced with Deities and Demigods. The rules there is it's a prime material form you've killed, and depending on how high level of, whether it's the head of a pantheon or just a lower echelon guy, is how long they have to go lay up in their home plane before they can manifest on the prime material again. In a Temptation of Players, it expressly says if you back a god up into his home plane, he's got nowhere for his spirit to go, and you can actually kill him.
But good luck. Which is why then players in the games I was in back in high school always wanted to travel to Gamma World.
Get the cool weapons?
Yes. Neutron bombs and fusion rifles and stuff. And it was Okay, now I want to go hunt a god.
That totally happened in a Michael Curtis game at North Texas Con. Somebody drew death from the deck of many things, but the guy had a mazer rifle, and Mike's going through Labyrinth Lord looking up the rules for death. He's like, doesn't say anything here about immunity from microwaves. Go ahead. You have a chance at killing him.
Hee.
It's been a while since I've read Lankmar, but I seem to recall that the character of Death there, that Fofford and Grey Mouser, they didn't kill him, but they gave him a real run for his money.
Well, Elric kills Ariok, so it's not like it's unprecedented in Appendix N literature.
And to mention a newer series that I'm aware, some gamers poo-poo as being really fluffy, but I've always enjoyed it. David Eddings' Belgariad. They had to kill an evil god, but to do so, they also had to have the assistance of the other gods, this guy's brothers. And I think if they had not had the assistance of other deities backing them up, they probably would not have been able to do what they did and to change things.
Oh, you just reminded me. That first DM, Lonnie, he imported one of those West Coast critical hit tables, and thanks to that critical hit table, we took out Yenigu at a ridiculous, maybe at 5th or 6th level, the average in the party. All because of that crit table and a lucky roll. Clearly, we weren't playing right.
But it was fun. Well, it's different when you're killing demons and devils. That's fine.
Well, they are kind of like Nazis. Killing Zeus and Odin, everybody gets up in arms about, but if you take down Orcus, you get cheers.
Yeah.
Like, woohoo!
There's no... Well, what about Orcus's point of view? Or, Yeonug had a childhood too, No, he's an evil demon and he dies. There you go.
That fire that critted Yenigu totally mounted his flail above the fireplace in his hall.
So it was a murder and a fashion statement.
That's right.
Awesome. Yeah, I think they provide a certain amount of flavor to it. To me, it's part of the fantasy flavor of running D&D. I will say that a lot of people get really militant, when they decide they're going to play their cleric or their paladin, they've got to be extremely militant about their god. And I suppose some are like that, but I think, if you look at most polytheistic pantheons, it's rare to find a cleric of them or a priest or priestess that's militantly missionary, That tends to be limited to monotheistic religion.
I'm going to let the joke that's in my head right now just pass unsaid.
Yeah, probably best. So, and I think in a way that kind of dissuades players for wanting to play clerics or paladins or holy figures because they feel like it's going to be a straitjacket. And I don't think it necessarily needs to be that way. If you're worshiping Aphrodite, you shouldn't be raising an undead legion to march, but, on every little thing, she going to take away your clerical powers because you didn't comb your hair this morning? No, come on. That gets back to the whole DM hammer thing, I suppose.
Are we going to talk at all about the other side of this, the people that are uncomfortable running deities in their campaigns for non-game related reasons?
Sure, but before we do, let me just say, B4, The Lost City, I can't see how you can run that adventure ignoring deities.
True.
You can't. That's the whole point of the sex, unless you just assume that they're worshiping a graven idol that is...
These people are all
nothing.
Insane.
They're all insane, which they kind of are, but they obviously get power and abilities from their respective deities. So, and some of them are worshiping the demon Zardos, or whatever. Go forth and kill. Anyway, okay, that's what I wanted to say.
And an homage to Zardoz is totally a deity in my post-apocalyptic campaign. So, well done.
Just tell me your deity isn't Sean Connery running shirtless.
With high boots.
It wasn't Sean Connery, but there were hundreds of those guys running around giving my players fits.
Well, it's fine as long as it's not. Yeah. Anyway. All right. So people uncomfortable.
It's attack of the hairy legs. I mean,
I was thinking more the flabby chest, but anyway.
For his age.
For his age, yeah, but
But he did not need to be wearing that.
Put a shirt on, man.
You guys are 8 years younger than me. The 70s had a lot of good, crazy stuff that then went away. I wish would come back.
I'm sure it will eventually.
I'm not gonna do.
Fashion always eventually, those tropes come around again. It's only a matter of time.
Chains and medallions. Anytime.
I get so nostalgic for the 70s. The God-given right to not wear...
making a comeback.
For women not to wear a bra or for men to wear Speedos in public. It didn't matter. We could cut this whole part out, but...
Yeah, we probably could.
Well, you're the edit. You do the edit, so it's up to you in the end.
I meant to talk about where some people are sensitive to or misunderstand the difference between little g gods and big G gods. In fantasy fiction and Marvel comics, it's all little g gods and deities, and they are just a souped up. They're like Q in Star Trek. They're just a souped up version of human beings. They may have divine powers compared to you, but it's basically science fiction gods. That was Jack Kirby's take on it.
And speaking of that, in Victorious, see how I plugged that there?
Yeah, very nice.
I have had some of the players' characters run into what amounts to the Greek and Norse gods, and they find out that really, no, they're just superpowered people. It's just in 3000 BC, they were considered gods. And since they didn't know what they were, well, they must be gods. I can fly through the air and throw lightning bolts.
Exactly. Just like Apollo in the Star Trek episode Who Mourns for Adonis. Aliens.
Yep.
The confusion comes in when the two books we're talking about, Gods, Demigods, and Heroes, and Deities and Demigods, both have, in some cases, D&D stats for deities that are still actively worshipped. Like, there's a whole continent with an appreciable percentage of the human race that still is Hindu.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about like New Age people who worship Odin now. I'm talking about this has been continuous for thousands of years, and that actually muddies the waters and gets things a little tricky.
Well, it was the 70s, and political correctness wasn't really big either. So, yeah.
Well, where it matters is, it's 2015 today, whether you're playing old school, new school. Where it matters is you as a DM know what you're comfortable with, and you know what your players are comfortable with.
Yeah, I tend not to use the real major religions that people are going to get upset at. The closest I've ever done is I have had just a sort of vaguely Catholic churchy with a deity simply called the Almighty. That's mostly because I wanted to have a culture that was very kind of Byzantine in my campaign world. But if I think people are going to feel uncomfortable about that, I don't have them go to that area. But yeah, I don't use the Hindi. I tend not to use Native American, though I think they don't get quite as hung up on it. They don't burn down temples and stuff like they do in India.
I don't want to get into like actual spirituality on a D&D podcast, but
no, of course not.
But the thing to just for everybody to remember is we're all atheists of 99.9% of the deities that were ever worshipped on this planet. And an actual atheist just believes in one less than you do.
And in a game where we are killing creatures and even bad guys, we're not really killing people. And also by that extension, you're not really worshiping any deity made up or otherwise. It's a game. It's just part of the game trope, and
it's play acting.
It's play acting. Yeah.
I don't know why D&D always gets the bullseye for this too, because there are a million computer games where you play the gods, building up cultures and civilizations, and nobody raises a stinky eye twice at those.
Oh yeah, well, it was because D&D was the first, and D&D, even if it's nowhere near its zenith, from its height of number of players back in the 80s. It's the name everybody goes to. And it's the name that, people freak out about if something weird happens. So-and-so And he was, and he played D&D. And it's like, really? Well, it's according to this, he was on the high school football team too. So does that mean we need to ban football? I mean,
right.
You can't just do that. You've got to prove a real, tangible link. And I don't want to get into that either. I guess what I'm saying is there is a mechanic in the game for the worship of gods in return for abilities, and that is the cleric. Maybe the paladin, if you use the one out of Greyhawk, or maybe some of the prestige classes in the Mentzer sets and onward. I know they weren't called that, but that was kind of what they were effectively. It's really just part of the game mechanic. And yeah, maybe a DM will use a deity. I mean, if the DM is going to use the deity as any type of limiter on player action, I would say that would be the way to handle alignment issues, if you're going to have them, rather than just a lightning bolt out of nowhere, or you're now chaotic evil and you drop a few levels. Have the gods smack them one, especially if they're a cleric or a paladin.
It's an unfortunate situation if it even has to come to that. I mean, usually just a good thunder rumble, 6 levels down into the dungeon is enough of a warning.
Did you hear that? No, you're delusional. Okay, well, any last statements then before we talk about our favorite fictional god? All right, random encounters.
How many people want to kick some ass?
There are 7 ogres surrounding you.
How could they surround us? I had Mordenkainen's magical watchdog cat.
No, you didn't.
Satanic fungus rises from the forest floor and says, "You're playing D&D. You're playing D&D. This whole apartment is playing D&D."
Random encounters.
I used to be a nerd.
Random encounters. It's so bad when you've done the bumper so often you have them memorized.
So what exactly is dragon flapping awesome anyway?
It's pretty darn awesome, I think.
I guess.
I think I pulled that from a clip for a commercial of some, not Lego, but Lego-like D&D set from the 90s, early 90s,
well,
late 80s.
It's awesome sounding. That is great. You should put that in our commercial or something. Anyway.
Save or
yes,
die.
Sir.
Dragon flapping awesome.
Yeah!
Then we'll have to start talking about wrestling. Anyway, no.
Only if I get to talk about the Von Erichs.
Huh?
Only if I get to talk about the Von Erichs. God rest their souls.
Only if I get to talk about Glow.
Okay.
Oh, holy crap, Mike! I just looked at the show notes. It's a little late in the episode to do that, isn't it? And you've got pick a favorite deity from gods, demigods, and heroes, or non-TSR product. I might have to change mine.
Yes. Well, would you like to start, Liz? While Jim desperately struggles to find another
non-TSR product.
He's having a crisis of faith over there.
Yeah. Okay, well, as I've mentioned many times before, back when I used the Holmes Basic, I picked up 2 of the Little Brown books as 2 separate products from the same hobby shop that I bought my Holmes box set. One of those was Gods, Demigods, and Heroes. And so that was what I used as the basis for any god activity that was going on with my game. And my big favorite of the time was from the Celtic mythos, and I always went to Ogma, the god of knowledge. He was my big one. It says there that Dagda was the head of the gods. I didn't use the entire mythos. I just kind of chose some at random. But Ogma was my big main king of the gods figure for when I did stuff. So he was my big favorite, and probably because I just liked the idea of a god should be wise as well as powerful, and he was the god of knowledge, and, he knew everything.
I know more than you do.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's Dr. Science.
Something I maybe should have mentioned in DM Fiat, but yeah, when I was young and, in my teens and 20s, usually whenever it came time for a character, if we were playing Greyhawk or a homebrew campaign, it didn't matter. It's like, need a god. Okay, here, boom. Here's gods, demigods, and heroes, or here's deities and demigods. Pick, just go through there and find a god you like. But as I've gotten older and I've developed my own campaign world, I've limited the number of deities because I just some of the deity fields can get kind of weird. I mean, demigods I can see as one thing, but I usually like to keep a handful. Like you were saying about the Celtic, I only used a few of those myself.
Well, standard Pantheon has 12.
Yeah.
So if you go over that, you're overthinking it.
You're overthinking it. Still looking?
Oh, no. I was enjoying the warm glow of this visual I have of little 12-year-old Elizabeth Galliano spent over this D&D supplement studying up on Celtic gods. I think that's adorable. That's the part nobody ever says about
that's
D&D.
dragon flapping awesome.
That's right. D&D will teach you math. It'll teach you
oh gosh, yes.
word use and vocabulary. It'll get you in the library looking up, books.
It did too. I mean, I had no idea what the word Dweomer was before I got my, AD&D books and stuff, it's like I looked up a lot of words playing Dungeons and Dragons, and it was great. I think it's a shame that some games now try to
get away from all that learning.
Well, dare I say, dumb themselves down. It didn't bother me that I didn't understand everything that I read. It just made me go get a dictionary and look things up because I wanted to know. On the other hand, I also realized that if you want to sell the most copies of something, you need to make it accessible to the most amount of people. So, I mean, my personal opinion and marketing 101 just sort of clash horns with some of this. Is like, I know this is a bad idea from a business standpoint, but I don't care.
It's okay to read books that are over your head. I do it all the time. I read physics books, and I figure if I'm a fine arts major, I figure if I only get 10 or 15%, that's 10 or 15% more than I had.
Yeah.
There you go. I read my student papers, which
causes you to lose IQ points.
Speaking of calling to your god,
yes.
What's yours, Jim?
I'm sorry. We're tangenting pretty good now, aren't we?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm going to further that by cheating and giving you two, because I had the one I had picked, but it wasn't really a favorite deity. It was my favorite pain in the ass deity. My brother had Ariok running around in his universe, and because Midas the Mad, my long-term magic user, was on paper, he was chaotic neutral, but I was 19 years old. So on paper he was chaotic good, rather. But he leaned more towards chaotic neutral because I was a teenager and ran amok all the time. So my brother,
evil tendencies.
So speaking to the issue of can deities be the DM's hammer, my brother, who didn't know I'd read the Elric books, but he had Ariok start chasing me around, and it would just be at the oddest times, in the bottom of a dungeon, way out, out in the middle of some adventure. A little child, a mysterious, beautiful child who glowed a little, would pop up and start offering me favors. And I was onto it and kept turning him down. So
go away.
So for D&D, it was Ariok. But after I saw the non-TSR product thing, I do actually have a favorite deity patron in Dungeon Crawl Classics, and it is without question the King of Elfland. He's sort of let me try and remember my Shakespeare. Not Titania. Who's
Oberon?
Oberon, sort of DCC's version of Oberon, and
the Earl King. Okay.
And for people who play DCC, I mean, having the King of Elfland for a patron is a great backdoor, because he's got a spell that he'll give his wizards and clerics that lets you step back in time 1d6 rounds if you get a high enough spell check. And that's a TPK preventer right there. I broke an adventure, a playtest adventure Joe Bittman was running at Gen Con. This is not Job's version of the story, obviously. He tells it differently. But we got in over our heads thanks to some party stupidity, and we're about to be wiped. And I had an elf with ventriloquism, rope work, and invoke patron. And I'm like, do I get to pick the patron? He's like, sure. So I picked Mr. King of Elfland, and half of us were out of there. The other half The other half came back in time and decided, we know what's going to happen now, and ran right back in to get TPK'd a second time.
So now we can avoid those mistakes. Yeah, and make even bigger ones.
So that's a good DD to have.
Yeah. Of course, if you had read all the Harry Dresdens, that wouldn't have been a surprise to you, but, just saying. All right.
How about you, Mike?
Well, as it is, I this was a bit of a tough one because there's the one I tend to use the most, at least in my campaign world, which tends to be, depending on where in the world, it's either Meliki or the Almighty, or there's the one that's my just favorite, and that's got to be Isaac of the Jug. Again, for you Lankmar fans out there. Partially because he's one of just about the only known god that actually gives a damn about people, trying to help them, particularly people being tortured or harmed. But Lieber introduced him as what amounted to a fake god that Fafhrd got tied up and basically made up to look like, and got drunk and ran through the streets beating up people who were trying to torture these people. So they thought, torture him. So they thought, oh my God, the god is real, da 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 da. And then later on in stories, he is now real. He is in the land of the gods, talking with the other gods, watching Fafhrd and the Great Mouser going around doing stuff. And I thought that was great because it was...
So did they create him?
Yeah. He did not exist before that story. And then after that story, which obviously as the reader, it wasn't really the deity. It was just Fafhrd running around with no hair.
But impressive enough to create a body of worshippers, apparently.
Yeah. And thus, now there's a god. So I thought that whole idea was great.
Well chosen, sir.
So that's my choice.
I haven't read those books in 30 years. I need to go back and read them again.
Oh, yeah. Especially because odds are Joe Goodman's going to give you an assignment on them.
No. That's all Michael Curtis. I'm Metamorphosis Alpha Boy.
Well, you tell Michael Curtis not to use up too much of his energy on that stuff, because he's still got to get that Rapture's Voyage adventure ready for next year's North Texas.
That's right. We're counting on him.
Mike and I get along because we're both so OCD as hell. He reread the entirety of Lankmar books 3 times before he put pen to paper on the first adventure. That's a lot of reading.
Holy crap on a crack. I thought I was... No, I bow to the might of your OCD foo, Mr. Curtis. Wow. That's like, 14 books?
You know what? If you're put in charge of the line and you want to get everything right and keep the license, I guess that's what you do. Mike's a hard worker.
Why? I'm sure that the Lankmar fandom would be most vivid if he made the occasional error in any supplements that got published.
Oh, you're funny. You're hilarious, Mike.
Which is even funnier because I'm the guy that's usually in the movies nitpicking the history.
Mm-hmm.
That's not what a hedge wizard does. I know.
Oh, come on. Nobody used the Bilgesarm until the 15th century. What is he doing with that? And that's not a Ransuer. That's a Becta Corbin.
Shut up. I'm trying to watch the movie.
And on that tragic, awkward note, thank gods we're at the dusty road headed down the trail of the 1970s. And how are we heading down this dusty 70s road, Jim?
Like I'm serving on the Battlestar Galactica because I love saying God's damn it. Just because there's nothing sacrilegious about that as long as you make it plural with little g.
How do you say little g, though? That's the...
I just did. Didn't you hear me?
No, I didn't.
God's damn it.
Got a disability. I can't understand lowercase letters. Anyway, over to you, Liz.
Okay, well, I'm going down that road. I'm hanging out with Agma, the god of knowledge, and he's telling me the secret names of all of the people and creatures that we run across as we're leaving.
And you're giggling.
Yes.
Really? That's his name? Seriously?
Oh, his true name. Now I can throw a spell.
And embarrass him at the same time.
I'm riding my bicycle as a good Cthulhu's witness and getting ready to pass out copies of Dark Dungeons and Darker Dungeons and even Darker Dungeons and the Darkest Dungeons. And we'll see you guys next episode of Save or Die.
Bye-bye.
See ya.
Free arc. And we're gone.
Woohoo!
So gone.
We're so very, very gone.
Podcast is a production of Wild Games Productions in association with D20Radio.com. The Save or Die theme music is provided by the band Mississippi Bones. You can find them at MississippiBones.bandcamp.com. All gods, demigods, and heroes appearing in tonight's episode were entirely fictitious, and any resemblance to real gods, living or dead, is purely coincidental. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on Save or Die.
Woohoo!
Yeah, and I told him, yeah, just remember, you too can make hundreds of dollars a year.
Bask in the fame and publicity and power.
I see I'm not the only one that's properly caffeinated.
Enjoy that. That's
Perhaps
going to be this
improperly caffeinated.
biggest burst of energy I'm going to have. I saved it up for that one.